You are live in the CNN newsroom. I'm Jim Acosta in Washington. In just a few hours, President Trump, former President Donald Trump, we should say, is set to take center stage at a GOP state convention. He'll be physically in the state of North Carolina, but mentally in a state of denial, increasingly obsessed with his own 2020 election loss. A well-placed source telling me that he's been asking if he could somehow be reinstated into the White House this year. Allies are trying to bring him back to reality, hoping he'll move the ball forward as Republicans approach the 2022 midterm elections. Good luck to them as they're dealing with a man who incited an insurrection over his bruised ego. And today, we're getting even more information about just how far Trump and his cronies were willing to push the big lie. The New York Times is reporting that during Trump's final weeks in office, get this, his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, repeatedly pushed the Justice Department to investigate unfounded conspiracy theories about the election, including the theory that people in Italy had used military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines here in the U.S. and switch votes for Trump to votes for Joe Biden. That just seems as far-fetched as anything could possibly be. CNN's Martin Savage joins me now ahead of Trump speaking tonight at the North Carolina GOP State Convention in Greenville. Martin, what are we expecting to hear out of the former president tonight?
Yeah, well, that's the big question, isn't it, Jim? I mean, that's what's got the crowd here. By Trump standards, it's a relatively small crowd, only about 1,200 people here. But here's the thing. This speech tonight is the first of what is expected to be a series of speeches and rallies that the former president is going to hold throughout the summer across the country. So what you hear tonight is likely what you're going to hear a lot of through the rest of that time in other places. We know that allies and those who have been advising the president have been pressuring him for weeks, trying to get him to simply let go of the loss of 2020 and to focus more on the future, to talk about the policy, talk about the Republican issues that they believe will drive the party forward and will win back the House and Senate for Republicans, and maybe in 2024, after the midterms, win back the White House. The problem is, it appears that Trump hasn't been listening to the professional voices, but has been listening to other voices that have been telling him, no, you need to stick and talk about that stolen election, which we know is not true and was not stolen. The other issue here is that Trump doesn't like to talk about policies. He finds that boring. And as you know, Jim, when he gets in front of a friendly crowd, when he feels that base, he feels like he has to deliver the base, give them the red meat, that kind of speech and talk. And in this case, he might feel that he has to talk about stop the steal. But the Republican leadership knows that's not how you win back the voters you lost in 2020. They're hoping for moderation. The truth is, we'll find out in just a little bit. Jim?
We certainly will. All right, Martin Savage, thanks so much. Great to see you. Matthew Dowd joins me now. He is the founder of the bipartisan group Country Over Party, served as an advisor to the Bush-Cheney 2004 campaign. He's the author of the book, A New Way, Embracing the Paradox as We Lead and Serve. Matthew, about tonight, a guy who's been impeached twice, who incited a deadly insurrection, whose message is deemed too dangerous to be given a platform on Facebook, is going to take the stage in North Carolina at this GOP state convention. Does tonight say more about the person speaking or the audience?
I mean, I think what we all ought to focus on is it says more about the audience and the Republican Party today. I mean, the Republican Party is lock, stock, and barrel Donald Trump's party, not only in sort of personality, but in tone and substance. They've adopted pretty much wholesale the big lie. They've adopted not investigating the January 6th insurrection. So I think it says a lot about the Republican Party and who they are today. Donald Trump is the most popular Republican figure in the country, by far more than any other Republican. So it's who the party is, and I think that's what's so dangerous today about where one of our two legacy party stands in America today.
And I want to get to this news that just came out today, Matthew. The New York Times reporting that these newly uncovered emails reveal that Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, pressured the Justice Department to investigate these unfounded conspiracy theories about election fraud, including this far-out theory that people in Italy use military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines in the U.S. I mean, this is just bizarre, outlandish stuff, but it fits right in with all of these other cockamamie ideas that were advanced after Trump lost the election. What's your reaction to this?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, and I think every day, Jim, as you know and as you've learned, every day we learn more and more that the Republicans will go to any lengths, and the Trump administration would go any lengths to sort of circumvent our democracy in this country. They will do anything. It's an ends justifies the means party, and that's who they are. They'll continue to do it. The question is, I think the fundamental question is us, either as Democrats or us as independents or us as Republicans who still believe in the Constitution, will we hold them accountable? Will they be held accountable? Because in the end, it's only going to get worse if we don't hold them accountable. And all of us out in the country, I'm in Texas, anywhere else in the country, Atlanta, wherever it happens to be, it's up to the voters and it's up to us individually to finally say enough's enough. We're not going to put up with this anymore. And to me, that's the only way the Republican Party will change. They have to suffer devastating losses to get out of this corrupt, incompetent place they're in. And it's the only way they'll change. They're not going to change because of what you say or I say. They're going to change when they suffer devastating losses.
That's right, but we still have to keep calling it out. I mean, you know, there's just no question about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But speaking of accountability, Facebook announced yesterday it's banning Trump for 2 years. Some people might view that as not enough accountability, but Trump released an email statement. No Twitter, no Facebook. He has to resort to email to get his message out. And what he says is, this about dining with the Zuckerbergs in the future. It's sort of a laughable quote, but I'll read it to you. It says, "Next time I'm in the White House, there will be no more dinners at his request with Mark Zuckerberg and his wife. It will be all business." I mean, next time in the White House. I guess that's like a pathetic attempt to tease us into thinking, oh, that's it. That means he's running, when it's just, more nonsense.
Yeah, it's nonsense, but it's dangerous nonsense. As you know, every other president that became a former president started to actually either didn't talk about things and let the current president act, or they helped build up America and what our place was with domestically and internationally. This president has done none of that. And one of the things I find fascinating, which Republicans ought to be concerned about, is that this is the only president in modern times whose favorability rating, which was already low, has dropped since he left office. Every other president, when they've either lost or left office, their respect among the American people rises. Donald Trump has gone the opposite direction. So, I mean, I think it's typical for this president to keep pushing delusional stuff. But the problem in the end isn't a delusional president, and as I called him, a mad king of Mar-a-Lago. It's the people that believe what he says. And you're right, Jim, you're right. The press, you, me, we have an obligation to call it out every day that we possibly can. But there's still a segment of the country, a minority segment, that believes the crazy stuff he says.
Yeah. And, this is the thing I really wanted to get to during this segment, because you've been a Republican for a long time, Republican advisor, worked for Bush and Cheney. You know people like Mike Pence. I'm sure you know Mike Pence fairly well. The former vice president was speaking at this Republican dinner in the early primary state of New Hampshire, obviously trying to tease the potential for his own candidacy in 2024. And he said this. Let's play it, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
You know, President Trump and I have spoken many times since we left office. And I don't know if we'll ever see eye to eye on that day. But I will always be proud of what we accomplished for the American people over the last 4 years.
It's remarkable, Matthew, because the reason why I prefaced the question in the way I did is that, Pence sort of represents the establishment wing of the Republican Party, and it seems that the establishment wing of the Republican Party is incapable of knocking Donald Trump off the stage, incapable of taking the party away from him. And that moment that Mike Pence had the other night just seems to be another example of it.
Well, I agree, but first, let me just say that for him to describe that like we don't agree about that day that happened, it is akin to me. It's like Mary Lincoln talking with John Wilkes Booth and saying, "Okay, it's okay if we don't agree about what happened at the Ford Theater," right? I mean, as if it's like some minor thing that was an occurrence that was a blip on the radar. I think the establishment of the Republican Party is foolhardy in thinking that they somehow can get past Donald Trump. The Republican Party is Donald Trump, as I said, in tone, substance, and manner. And Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney are not going to change the Republican Party. It is gone.
All right, Matthew Dowd, great to talk to you and hope to have you back again real soon. Gave us a lot to think about, and good to see you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. You too.